Yo gamers, what is good? Today we are going to be continuing our countdown to the Switch 2 by reminiscing on a year in the life of the Nintendo Switch, as well as giving some updates on the recent news and developments in the Nintendo or Nintendo Switch 2 scene, which we actually have some good stuff today because Nintendo dropped their quarterly financials, and although we're still waiting on the Q&A portion of that, there is some interesting things to grasp from there. So let's just get right into it with the Switch retrospective, this time looking at the year 2021. Okay, so 2020 was a pretty bad year. Let's just be real. It was not a great year for you. It was not a great year for me. It was not a great year for Nintendo. It was not great. But were we about to see a generational comeback with 2021? No. I'm gonna be real with you guys. 2021 might as well be 2018 part 2 for me in terms of the greater Switch lifespan. This year is heavily reliant upon re-releases. However, I will say they're a bit more interesting since they aren't just straight up Wii U ports. We're getting a lot of remasters or full-on remakes now from titles spanning across Nintendo's entire console lifespan. But anyways, let's just get right into it with March, where I have Monster Hunter Rise. Now technically, this game was not developed nor published by Nintendo in any region, but it was a pretty massive temporary third-party exclusive that went on to sell, I think, like 10 million units on the Switch. This is definitely one of the best-selling third-party titles, if not the best-selling third-party title on the platform. So I just wanted to make mention of it. I own it, I have not yet played it, but I've heard it's very good. Alright, moving along to April, where we have new Pokemon Snap. Now, the existence of this game is such a bizarre phenomenon. For decades, all of these Nintendo YouTubers I watched were begging for a sequel to this game, and then, like, it just didn't happen on the Wii U, which was the perfect system for it. The gamepad perfectly simulated the camera you held to take pictures of Pokemon in the game, so great going, Miyamoto. You could have saved the Wii U with a Pokemon Snap, but instead we have to settle for Mario and Sonic at the Brazil Olympic Games. Another weird external factor to new Pokemon Snap is how it kind of just came and went. The way that YouTubers described this game made it almost sound mythical, and I guess I'm talking about the N64 entry now. And so to finally get this sequel decades later, you would think there would be a lot more buzz and it would make a bigger splash than around 2 million units, which isn't terrible, but when you consider that this is 1, a Pokemon game, and 2, a sequel to a title that apparently had a lot of interest, it just seems a little underwhelming. And I guess this is another entry in the long list of games, movies, books, whatever that gets a lot of attention on the internet and that doesn't necessarily translate into real world success. With all that being said though, I really quite enjoyed new Pokemon Snap. It's almost therapeutic. This is a very relaxing title in the same veins as something like Endless Ocean Luminous, or I guess even Animal Crossing New Horizons, where it's more about evoking certain vibes than engaging with game mechanics. If you're looking to unwind and you like Pokemon, I would totally recommend this to you. But okay, next up we got May, where we were hit with not 1, not 2, but 3 re-releases. The first came in a double pack, Famicom Detective Club. Alrighty, so I'm gonna be real with you guys. I think I've said this before, but prior to 2024, my only experience with visual novels was Doki Doki Literature Club, and that was a ton of fun to play with friends back in the day, but that felt more like an exception to me, and I just did not see the appeal of the visual novel genre. I mean, reading for the gameplay? Bro, I'm trying to escape books to play video games. Anyways, I was not super into them, and so when this was first announced and subsequently released, I just did not care at all. I did repent though, and a few years later, I became what we like to call a reader. I'm a reader bro now. But yeah, I got into the Ace Attorney trilogy at like the beginning of summer 2024, and what's really funny is just a couple weeks later, Nintendo actually announced Emio, which was a sequel to the Famicom Detective Club games, and so I was like, this is perfect, I'm already getting into the visual novel genre, and so I went back and I purchased these two games to play them before Emio came out, and I really quite enjoyed them. There is certainly some NES era jank in here, and they didn't completely fix all of that, but the artwork is great, the music is solid, the animations are awesome, and the stories are pretty good. I personally prefer the first game, which I believe is called The Girl Who Lost Time. The other one is called The Missing Heir, and that one is good, but I ultimately felt like the story and the reveals and the pacing of the first entry were a little bit better. It was a tighter experience. Both of these are fairly short titles as well, but they were also digital only in North America and Europe. I regret this so bad now, but I was actually living in Japan when these games came out, and before I was heading back to the USA, I stopped by a game store and I actually saw a physical collector's edition of the Famicom Detective Club remakes. And these were only like 60 bucks as well, which, I mean, when you consider how rare of an item this is, that's not too bad. Unfortunately, because I didn't see the appeal in reading, I did not pick these up at the time, which I, like I said earlier, deeply regret to this day. It's probably nigh impossible to find those now. Okay, our next release in May is Tomodachi, just kidding, Miitopia. Yeah, basically all I have to say about this game is it's not Tomodachi Life, and of course, now we know we're actually getting a Tomodachi Life title on the Switch, but back in the day, I'm just like, bro, this doesn't do the quirky me stuff as well as Tomodachi Life does, and it doesn't do RPG stuff as well as other RPGs do, so it's basically the worst of both ends, and I don't really care about this. I've tried to get into it, it's not my thing. Let's move on to another thing that's not my thing. I think I just said thing like 5 times within the last sentence, which is probably not good English. So much for my reader bro status. Game Builder Garage. This was sort of like the last iteration of the Nintendo Labo series. Although it wasn't actually related to any sort of cardboard accessory, it definitely had the DNA of those Labo titles built inside of it, and it was sort of like a beginner's programming tool. Now, I own this game, I have not yet opened it, and I don't know if I'll ever open it because I just don't think it's really gonna interest me, but if I were like 10 or 15 years younger, I could see myself getting super into this game. Alrighty, next up is Mario Golf Super Rush. I don't have a lot to say about this. I've never been super into the Mario Golf games. I think I played this for about an hour or two. It's fine. I feel like it's very basic Mario sports fare. There seems to be a lot lacking in terms of the wackiness that Mario sports games offered in the past. The core gameplay is not as mechanically rich as Mario Tennis Aces, so I wasn't necessarily drawn to keep playing like I was in the previous Mario sports game on the Switch, and overall, this is just a very forgettable title. Okay, next up is The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD, which I actually made a full video review for like a year ago now. You can check that out for my more in-depth thoughts, but the Cliff Notes version of that video is, well, I guess kids now probably use ChatGPT, so the AI summary version of that video is, it's the worst 3D Zelda in my opinion, but it is still a really great game, and I would totally recommend it to people who have not played it yet. Okay, our next title was released on the 11th of September, and I don't know if this was some sort of attempt at dark humor, but Nintendo released one of the worst games of the entire Switch library on this day. WarioWare, get it together. This game just sucks. It is not WarioWare. It feels like a mobile game from 2012. It looks like a mobile game from 2012. I'm not even going to put video footage of it in this video because I don't want to desecrate the rest of my opinions by having this trash displayed over my commentary. It is a cheap, shallow, flimsy platformer masquerading as WarioWare. Do not get this game. Get the other WarioWare game on Switch instead, because that one is actually one of the best party games Nintendo has ever made. Alright, continuing from that, we have Metroid Dread. So, I'm gonna be real with you, I'm not a Metroid guy. I have tried to get into Metroid at several different points in my life. I've tried the 3D games, I've tried the 2D games, I've even tried Metroid Federation Force, whatever you guys want to classify that freak of nature as. But I'm gonna be real with you, I just can't get into this series. So, it should mean something when somebody like me, who has honestly attempted to get into this franchise multiple times, tells you, I actually quite enjoyed this game and beat it. I almost got 100% also, and I wasn't even relying on any guides or anything like that. That was just purely out of my own desire to explore. This is a really good game. I can definitely tell you that. Even if it's still not necessarily my type of game, I can very much respect this for just how well made it is. It is very polished, it looks great, it feels great to control, and the world is pretty fun to explore. My only gripe with this is that I feel like in previous Metroid games, there was a higher density of banger music, and this time around, there's really just this one song that I like to listen to from it, and the rest of them, well, they kind of sucked. But you know something that didn't suck? Mario Party Superstars. Holy frick, man. This was everything we wanted from the Mario Party series, and then some. They fully remade classic boards, fully remade tons of incredible mini games, the series best even. They gave us some cool online editions, and of course, they added stamp reactions to this game. Mario Party Superstars is so good that I played this game alone for hours on end when it came out. I was just that into it. With this game, we could safely say that the Mario Party series was back on track and that our boy had come home. Alrighty, sliding into November, we got Shin Megami Tensei 5, a game that I have not played or owned, and I don't think I ever will. It's basically Persona without the anime, and at that point, I just have to ask, why? Why? Why would you play this? But I've heard it's pretty good. This was also a pretty big deal. I think it was a temporary Switch exclusive. It has since received an enhanced version that I believe is multi-platform. But yeah, this was a game announced way back in, I think, the January 2017 presentation. So one of the longest awaited titles on the Switch, but I just do not care. Alrighty, another atrocity in the Switch's library came with our next release, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. These are just embarrassing, man. Like, I don't know how they released these and felt like they could sleep with themselves at the next night. Obviously, the easiest point of criticism are the game's visuals. To me, this is like the cursed version of Link's Awakening's approach to remade visuals. This one feels cheap, hollow, lazy, and uninspired. It's so soulless. Whereas with Link's Awakening, there's so much life, vibrance, personality, and that artisanal touch to make the world so much more alive and lovable. But okay, let's put aside the visuals for now because obviously those are bad. My main complaint with this game is why the frick did they remake Diamond and Pearl and not Platinum? I mean, even if they wanted to have the dual release and have Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, at least base it off of Platinum, which was like the objectively better version of those games. And I know, people might say, well, they wanted to have the dual release so they could make double the profit. Okay, fine, you can do that, but just base it off of Platinum. Like, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense because now I don't even know what the definitive way to play Gen 4 is. Is it Platinum? Is it Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl? I don't know, man, but it's just a mess, and it makes me all the more sad because Gen 4 was the generation I got into Pokemon with, so it's like they just stabbed me in the heart after all those years of support. This is how you treat me? Frick you, Game Freak. So yeah, by this point, I was basically at my last straw with the Pokemon Company, and I was pretty much ready to just give up the series because there had just been year after year of disappointment. And remember, at this time, I didn't play Sword or Shield, which I have since played now, and I actually think they're pretty good games. But at this time, I was just like, man, these guys just hate us. But I mean, joke's on me because all of these Pokemon games were still selling like tens of millions, even breaking into the 20 million. So clearly people still wanted their Pokemon. Alright, and rounding out 2021, we got Big Brain Academy, Brain vs. Brain. Now, I don't remember if I threw this piece of trivia in my 2019 retrospective, but in that year, we got a Brain Age title created for the Switch that was actually illegal in North America, which is so ridiculous to say. But I guess because of whatever retarded law we made in the US, we can't have games that are marketed as helping you become smarter here anymore. I don't know. But somehow this game was able to get smuggled over here and we're all good. Some people ragged on this for feeling a little bit content barren, and it's definitely pretty simple. There's not a lot of variety, but I like this game, man. It's just a fun, multiplayer minigame collection. It definitely has some of that Nintendo charm in there, and you can certainly enjoy this game for a couple hours at a time with your friends on a semi-frequent basis, which is more than I can say for something like 1-2 Switch, where I want to play this game like once every 5 years and then never see it again. But yeah, I quite like this game. It's only $30 too, so I'm not really gonna throw a fit over it. I like this title. Okay, but there was one more game before we started the next year of the Nintendo Switch, and needless to say, my expectations for this title were pretty high. In fact, if this game did not live up to those, I was ready to say goodbye to its series. That was Pokemon Legends Arceus. Yeah, only 2 months after the last game, we are getting another Pokemon title on the Switch, and this game was promising some pretty radical developments in the Pokemon formula. This wasn't just your typical fight 8 gym leaders and become the champion or catch them all game. No, this was basically marketed as the Breath of the Wild for Pokemon. It was an open world game with an entirely new catching system, and there was different goals in general for the progression, leading to an entirely new gameplay loop. So did this game succeed in proving me wrong that the Pokemon company still had it and that the Pokemon series was still capable of producing bangers? Oh yeah. Pokemon Legends Arceus is a masterpiece. It certainly has some flaws, but this is a masterpiece. This is the best Pokemon game ever made. Yes, that is a bold statement, but I'm saying that. And I've played every entry in this series. I have nostalgia for certain games and stuff, but no, I'm just gonna be real with you. This is the best Pokemon game ever made. The level of ambition with this title is so refreshing after what felt like years of copy and paste. And I guess they did sort of try to shake things up with Gen 7, with the Alola region where you go around to different islands, and I don't know, it was a little bit different. But generally speaking, Pokemon had remained the same from all the way back in 1996 up until this point. And finally, it felt like they were trying to evolve the series. The star of the show has got to be the Pokeball. Now you can seamlessly throw out your Pokeball whenever you want to, send a Pokemon off to do a task for you, collect an item, battle another Pokemon, or even sneak up behind a wild Pokemon and catch it, or catch it from any angle you want to. It's so much more fluid, and because things are no longer locked into this slow back and forth engagement of combat, the world feels way more alive than any prior Pokemon game, and it's just really fun. That's not even to say anything about the game's amazing world design. Each of these locations are super interesting to explore, filled with cool hidden areas, filled with unique Pokemon in each region, filled with all sorts of different cool landmarks and whatever to keep you constantly surprised. And speaking of surprise, woo! That soundtrack is insane. This is easily the highest production value of any Pokemon game soundtrack. They pulled out all the stops for this one. It is comprised of a lot of remixes from older Pokemon games, but straightforward remixes these are not. The leading melodies are very emotional in that classic Pokemon way. The supporting chords are beautiful and rich and lush, and there's some really good reharmonization going on here to just bring out the most in those emotional leading melodies, and it all comes together to create something that feels so much more epic than Pokemon has ever been before. And look, for the last few generations up until this point, the Pokemon Company had always tried to do some sort of cute gimmick to make battles more unique, and I think that Mega Evolutions were fun, and the Gigantamaxing in Pokemon Sword and Shield was also cool, but the quick and powerful version of moves for Pokemon Legends Arceus is definitely the most strategic addition to this series yet, at least in terms of a single player RPG experience. To me, this scratches that Brave and Default from Bravely Default or Break and Boost from Octopath Traveler deceptively simple twist on that traditional turn-based combat system, but it makes everything way more interesting. You can either take the risk and use a weaker version of attack to go earlier than your opponent, or you can hold back a bit and do a more powerful version, but maybe take a few more hits from your opponent. by doing the powerful version of an attack. I don't know, man. I just love this. I would be so down if this is how every Pokemon game in the future functioned for its battle system, because to me this is just that perfect amount of variation on the traditional JRPG turn-based combat to keep things infinitely replayable and fresh when you start a battle. Oh, and the boss fights are crazy too. They're just like straight up action games. And then of course you got the cast of characters and the story. For me, this is right up there with Gen 5 and Gen 7 as the best characters and story we've ever gotten in a mainline Pokemon game. So overall, I am extremely positive when it comes to Pokemon Legends Arceus. And that'll wrap up our year. There were 15 games I went over in this list, and I guess it's true that Monster Hunter Rise and Shin Megami Tensei 5 aren't exactly Nintendo games, but as I mentioned at the start of this whole retrospective series, I did want to include any notable third-party titles that, felt like they might as well have been first-party releases on the Switch. So a few things to note about this year. First off, the quantity of game releases is a lot higher than the year before, or actually it is higher than any year we've had on the Switch so far, with 15. And again, I'm being a little generous by including Monster Hunter and Shin Megami Tensei 5, but regardless, that is a pretty packed year. And I do have to imagine a good chunk of these were originally meant to release in 2020, but due to the pandemic were delayed. Regardless though, that led to a year with a lot of games for us to play. I mean, look at this. May had 3 games, October had 2 games, November had 2 games, June had 2 games. There were a lot of months where we were doubling up, so that is pretty fun. Another point, for my liking, this year relied a little bit too much on re-releases proportional to original offerings. And I feel like in that sense, it's sort of like 2018 Part 2. Now here's the thing, I'm a bit less critical for this year as we are going on year 5 of the Nintendo Switch than 2018, where it was only the second year, where I want a lot of original offerings. This time around, okay, the system's a little bit older, and I actually think it makes a lot of sense for the second half of the system's life to rely more on re-releases, but I mean, we're only at year 5, and we have 5 re-releases? That seems a little bit much to me. With that said though, these are also more interesting to me because they are more like remasters or remakes rather than just straight up deluxe ports of Wii U games. I also said this in my last video, but I do believe with the turn of the 4th year of the Nintendo Switch, we entered Season 2 of the system. And what I mean by that is we did start to get a lot more same system sequels or second entries in series that have already been established on the system, rather than entirely original outings or new IP appearing on the system for the first time. Looking at the calendar year 2021, so not the actual system's life, but the calendar year, we got our second 3D Mario game with Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, our next Labo-esque game with Game Builder Garage, our second Mario sports game with Mario Golf Super Rush, our second Zelda re-release with The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD, the first one being Link's Awakening, our second Mario Party game on the system with Mario Party Superstars, our second Pokemon remake on the system with the Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl games, our second educational entertainment game with Big Brain Academy, Brain vs. Brain. There's a lot of things you can find, and I think as we keep going throughout the rest of these years, you'll notice that there are a lot of these, I guess, quote, part 2s of games or ideas we saw in the first half of the system's life, particularly those that were successful, the more successful ones. So yeah, I don't know, I just think that is kind of interesting. And of course, speaking of success, this was the year that the Nintendo Switch officially surpassed 100 million units sold, meaning that by the end of this year, it had actually surpassed the Wii to become Nintendo's best-selling home system. I know that technically the Switch is a hybrid, so it's not directly competing with the home consoles Nintendo released before this or the handhelds, but you could now safely call it the most successful home console system Nintendo had made. And hey, passing 100 million units is a huge milestone, so that was really exciting. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's video, looking back on this year 2021 into the start of 2022 for the Nintendo Switch. So I will catch you guys next week to look at 2022 for the Nintendo Switch, and I'm pretty excited about this year. This is a banger we got coming up. Yo gamers, what is good? We are now going to talk about all of the developments in the Nintendo Switch 2 and greater Nintendo scene over the past week, and we're going to start off with something that I am very excited to look over, the Nintendo financial results. This is going to be covering the fourth quarter of the 2024 to 2025 fiscal year, so this is actually the last quarter, and we're going to get some updates on sales figures between January 1st, 2025 until March 31st of 2025. So, I'm very excited to look at this. Let's kick off by talking about Nintendo's plans for future Switch support. So not Switch 2, but the original Nintendo Switch. Currently, we have 5 upcoming announced first-party titles for the Nintendo Switch. 2 of them are very big games coming out this year. In Pokemon Legends ZA, dated for late 2025. I'm pretty confident that'll be November 20th of this year, but we'll have to wait and see. And Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which I'm personally feeling a September 25th release date for, although I could be wrong on that. These are both blockbuster Nintendo releases, and even though Metroid might not necessarily have the sales to classify it as a blockbuster, I think it's pretty safe to say from looking at the game, yeah, this is a big budget Nintendo title. But we also have 2 other games that I am extremely excited about, in fact, even more looking forward to than Pokemon and Metroid, Rhythm Heaven Groove and Tomodachi Life Living the Dream in 2026. My personal prediction is Rhythm Heaven Groove will release on January 22nd of 2026, and Tomodachi Life will release in June of 2026. We also have Pokemon Championships, which is TBD on its release status, although I'm going to imagine it's probably going to be either end of this year or early next year, sometime before Pokemon Day 2027, which, by the way, will kick off the 30th anniversary for that series. So, one thing that is very interesting, if you read underneath this section, they have a bulletin point that says, going forward, we will continue to bring out new titles for the over 100 million people worldwide who are playing Nintendo Switch. That is very interesting to me, because while I think that it makes sense they would continue to support the Nintendo Switch going forward, you know, when you put it into perspective that there are still over 100 million people actively playing this system, yeah, like, they're totally gonna keep making games from this thing. This might actually have longer legs than I was initially expecting. I don't know, just when you frame it like that, I could actually see support for this system going until like 2028, honestly. Maybe that's a little bit too idealistic, but I definitely think we're still going to get quite a few games for that system in 2026, and even into its 10th anniversary in 2027. I'm very excited and curious to see what type of games Nintendo decides to bring on the Switch as opposed to those they put on the Switch 2, because, right, like, they are kind of going to start appealing to different audiences, and I do think Nintendo is going to want to make more of their blockbuster series for Switch 2 going forward, but maybe this will be our way to get some of these more niche series revived, is by having new entries on the Switch or getting more re-releases, whether those are remasters or remakes. So yeah, I don't know, I'm very excited about that, and that is cool. We get direct confirmation that there's still even more first-party titles yet to be revealed for the Nintendo Switch. Alrighty, let's talk sales now. The Nintendo Switch is now at 152.12 million units sold worldwide. It is currently hot on the tracks of the Nintendo DS at 154.02 million units worldwide, and not that much further behind the PlayStation 2, which Sony conveniently found a couple extra million units sold over the last couple years, bringing it to 160 million worldwide. I fully anticipate the Switch will eventually dethrone the PlayStation 2 at that figure, but it might take another year or two. If they decide to offer a discount, maybe that would accelerate the process, but basically my predictions are, well, Nintendo's predictions are that the Switch will sell 4.5 million units within this next fiscal year. So basically a year from now, that would put it at like 156.7 million units worldwide. If it can indeed follow that track and that momentum of sales, this would bring in a rather ceremonious 10th anniversary of the system, because it would be around that time that the Nintendo Switch becomes the best-selling system of all time. Very cool, and I think that's very believable. I do believe it will sell about 4 to 5 million units over the next year. Even though the Switch 2 is definitely going to steal the thunder, and everyone on the internet will talk about the Switch 2, and you know, most people will start focusing on that. People are still going to be buying the Switch, so I am curious and excited to see how much longer this system can go. Okay, let's talk some game sales update. Super Mario Party Jamboree is now at a worldwide total of 7.48 million units worldwide, which is amazing. This is the fastest selling Mario Party game of all time. I fully anticipate that with the Nintendo Switch 2 edition coming out in the summer, this game will pass 10 million units within the next year or so, and it might even end up surpassing Mario Party Superstars, which we now know is over 14 million units worldwide. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is at over 4 million units now worldwide, which is pretty dang good. That's a couple million units shorter of Link's Awakening, but given this is a same system sequel and it released later on in the system's life, I feel like that's very commendable. And, you know, I think that just shows that there's certainly still an audience for 2D Zelda games, so that is cool. Nintendo Switch Sports. This game and Super Mario Bros. Wonder have proven to be truly evergreen titles, in my opinion. They have long legs. They will continue to sell for many years if Nintendo keeps pushing them, as Switch Sports is now at 16.27 million units worldwide. Pretty crazy. And Mario Bros. Wonder is not far behind it at 16.03 million units worldwide. We have got to get that figure above New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. I cannot live in a world where New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe has sold more units than Mario Wonder. But I'm not worried about that at all. I think that there's a very high chance that a Mario Wonder Switch 2 edition with some sort of cool expansion will be announced and released this year, and that will certainly help push it over probably into the 20 million unit threshold. I do think this game will definitely reach 20 million at some point. Okay, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. I've been very curious about this one. It did fall off pretty hard after its first quarter, but I guess that's sort of to be expected with the type of game it is. It's at 2.1 million units worldwide. That seems pretty great to me. I'll be honest, in my fantasies, this game has sold over 10 million units. It's just totally dancing on the grave of Paper Mario the Origami King, and it's, you know, everybody loves traditional Paper Mario and we're all happy and there's world peace, but I don't think that's going to happen. But the fact that it sold 2.1 million units as a same system sequel and a remake that I don't even feel like got that much marketing when it was released. Like, honestly, I didn't see a ton of advertising for this game. That seems pretty good to me. That's not that much lower than Origami King, which is at 3.3 million units. So this is like give or take, like, you know, 66% of that. That's a pretty strong retention rate. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, though, I have to be honest, this one is performing a lot worse than I expected. Given just how well Luigi's Mansion 3 did, I was thinking this game would easily sell, you know, like upwards of 4 million units, but it has really struggled to break much higher than what it started with, and it's at 1.88 million units worldwide. So yeah, I don't know. I think that, you know, I don't know if that's just a case of Luigi's Mansion 3 being a fluke, or, you know, maybe people just didn't care about this game as it was a remaster of a 3DS title. And, you know, I know Luigi's Mansion 2 doesn't have necessarily the greatest reception. It's not bad, but it's sort of like a black sheep in the series. I don't know. That just seems a little bit weaker than I would have anticipated. Mario and Luigi Brothership, on the other hand, is just under 2 million units, and I know this game kind of caught some heat when it was released. It got some controversial critic review scores, but honestly, I really quite enjoyed this game. It's like a solid 7, 8, maybe on a good day, even a 9 for me. It's probably like, it might be my favorite Mario and Luigi game, which that might be a hot take, but that's a different video for a different day. Mario and Luigi Brothership, though, I think is pretty good, and the fact that it's about 2 million, that seems good. And then Donkey Kong Country Returns HD is at 1.27 million units worldwide. That's not bad, considering this is a very bare bones remaster of the Wii game, and I also don't remember this getting a particularly large amount of promotional material at its release. And I mean, it came out on the day the Switch 2 was announced, which is kind of funny because, like, that just completely buried it in the news cycle. But anyways, with that said, now I want to get into the top selling games on the Nintendo Switch system. So coming in at number 10, we got New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe at 18.25 million units. That's great. That's amazing. And hopefully Mario Wonder beats it soon. Then we got Super Mario Party at 21. I think this is kind of funny. The way that the Mario Party games on Switch are now is it's essentially each consecutive entry has sold 7 million less. So we got Super Mario Party at 21, Mario Party Superstars at 14, and Super Mario Party Jamboree at 7. That is kind of funny, but jeez, man. I mean, this series has just exploded on the Switch. It does so well, and 21 is insane. 14 is insane for the second one, and 7 is crazy. I fully anticipate that Super Mario Party Jamboree will pass 10 million units, and honestly, depending on how much they continue to market it and kind of push it this Christmas season, which I do think they will push it pretty strong again, it might even pass the 14 million set by Mario Party Superstars, which is crazy. It is practically unheard of for a same system sequel, let alone a same system threequel, to surpass the sales of a previous entry on that system. I do have to wonder though, with these Mario Party games having a 3-year release cadence, and we just got Super Mario Party Jamboree, I wonder if they're going to want to kind of wait it out a little longer until we get the next title for Nintendo Switch 2, the next brand new Mario Party game on Switch 2. And I just say that because I imagine they probably want to keep hitting that 10 million units passed for each entry. And although I could never get burnt on Mario Party, at least good Mario Party, maybe the greater population needs a little bit longer to recuperate before they go into the next Mario Party game. So I do kind of wonder if we'll see a bit of a longer gap between Mario Party Jamboree and, let's just say, the next one is Super Mario Party 2, or whatever they call it. I don't know, that's just speculation on my end. But next up we got The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which really it hit a wall after it released. I think it sold like 20 million or something. It was sold a ton, and then it just has barely moved at all since then, which is kind of a bummer to me because I love this game. This is like arguably my favorite game of all time. It is a phenomenal title. It is definitely one of the best games ever made in terms of just like production value. I do really love it, and I don't know why. I don't think it's the $70 price tag. I think it's more just that like people kind of were just like, I'm good with Breath of the Wild, and maybe they didn't see enough differences, which that's fair. I think that there are a lot more differences than the internet often paints out for this game, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I don't even know if this game will hit 22 million, but I don't really know if it'll get much higher than that. Okay, next up, speaking of same system sequels, we have a phenomenon that I don't know if I've ever seen, or very rarely seen. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has passed Pokemon Sword and Shield as the best-selling Pokemon games on the system, and now the second best-selling Pokemon games of all time. So even though Scarlet and Violet were released 3 years after Sword and Shield, these are same system sequels, they have outsold Sword and Shield. That is incredible. There's never been a time in the history of the series where the second generation on the system outsells the debut generation on that system. And so this is crazy, and the ladies are pretty good on Scarlet and Violet. It's definitely going to hit 27 million this year, and it might even keep going higher. It seems like it's holding a level of interest with people very well, which is just interesting because if you recall, back when this game first released, there was a lot of controversy online about just how poorly it performed, and technically it was a mess and it didn't look great, and people were just like, how could they release this? Nintendo even had to issue an official apology, but I guess that was just online noise, and that kind of makes me think, well, is all the Switch 2 complaining just online noise as well? I don't know, maybe there were more normies that owned a Switch by the time Scarlet and Violet came out, so they were like, oh, Pokemon, I'll buy that. I don't know, that's crazy that the same system sequel outsold the original. That's just crazy, that never happens. Alrighty, but next up, we got Mario Odyssey, the king, at 29.28 million units worldwide. I am so excited for this to hit 30 million, which it probably will in the next year or two. That's gonna be awesome. I mean, Mario Odyssey at 30 million, that's incredible. That is really, really cool, and this game deserves it. I love it. This is like probably my favorite game of all time. I've said that about a lot of games in here, but that's just how good the Switch's library is. And speaking of favorite games of all time, Breath of the Wild is next at 32.8 million. Crazy. This game, I believe, actually once again sold more units in the last quarter than Tears of the Kingdom, which that's just fascinating to me. I don't know. That's really interesting to me. I guess I don't know what that is, but more people are just still buying Breath of the Wild than Tears of the Kingdom. Then we got Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at 36.24 million units. That's incredible. This game has continued to sell pretty well. I think in this last fiscal year, it sold another like 1.5-ish million. So I don't know if it will hit 40. That would probably take quite a few more years. And by that point, the next Smash might be out. So I don't know, but that would be really crazy if this game is able to start getting closer to 40. I think it's probably going to end up around 38 million, 37 to 38, but very impressive. Animal Crossing New Horizons is next at 47.82. This game is going to hit 50 million, which is just insane. I don't know if Animal Crossing will ever be able to replicate this kind of virality again. It's just kind of like wild to me, but you know, the fact that it's still selling this well, I mean, people love this game. I have my problems with it, but the majority of people who buy it really enjoyed it. So yeah, I think I don't know when the next Animal Crossing will come out. I actually theorize that it's actually going to be a lot sooner than New Horizons was on the Switch. I even think we might get the next Animal Crossing next year, but that's going to be huge. This is a certified big boy series. And then, of course, at the top, we got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 68.2 million units worldwide. Just incredible. Like, it's wild. This game is going to hit 70 million. Even with Mario Kart World coming out, this game will eventually hit 70 million, and that is just astounding. There's very, very few games that hit that point. So it might even end up becoming Nintendo's best-selling game of all time. I think their best-selling of all time is technically still Wii Sports at 82.9 million, but like that game was always sold as a pack-in in North America and I think Europe as well. And like, I know Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has also been sold in a bundle, but that's not always. It's not always in a bundle. That's usually only during the Christmas season. So it feels like a little bit of cheating to me. I don't know. Can we call Mario Kart 8 Deluxe the best-selling Nintendo game? I think we can call it that. Which is just crazy. That's amazing. It's gonna hit 70 million. And that is the list. So a pretty stellar top 10. We got a lot of Mario in here. We actually got a good variety. We got Mario, we got Zelda, we got Smash, we got Pokemon, we got Animal Crossing. Good lineup here. And I actually do think over this next fiscal year, so the 25 to 26, we will see a couple of these games maybe shifted out. I definitely think New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe will be dethroned by Nintendo Switch Sports and Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Probably Mario Wonder will do better than Switch Sports, but yeah, that's going to be fun to see as those kind of keep climbing up. But overall, great sales on Nintendo's end. I mean, obviously the Switch momentum has slowed a lot, but it does seem like things are still going well, all things considered. And we're just kind of waiting now on the Q&A to see if there's any other juicy details they're going to drop. But overall, it's always fun for me to look at these, and it looks like, you know, these games are still selling well, even though the system might have kind of plateaued. The software is still doing pretty dang well. And I just realized I've been babbling about these numbers for almost 20 minutes now, so let's just hurry and get to some other things. We had the creator's voice for Final Fantasy VII Remake integrated this week. Definitely the game that I'm most excited for out of all these creators' voice titles they've shown off. Unfortunately, we still don't know when it's going to be released. I think it'll probably be like early October. But yeah, that looks amazing, and he made it very clear multiple times in this video that the whole Final Fantasy VII Remake series is going to be coming to the system. So you can expect Rebirth will be coming out soon. You can expect that whatever the last one will be titled, that will also come out in the system. So that's very cool. And he mentioned how he wants the Final Fantasy brand to grow very strong on the Switch. That makes me happy. I hope it can as well. I'm really excited for the day we probably inevitably get Final Fantasy 15 because I love 15. That was the first one that I played and beat, so yeah, that's great. And the last super noteworthy thing that happened this week was that we got pre-orders for Nintendo's official store on Switch 2 going out. That actually happened today. So yeah, check your emails if you registered interest for that. And I think you could also pick up the GameCube controller from them on the website starting today. So that's pretty cool. Anyways, though, that's going to wrap it up for the news this week. That was way longer than I anticipated, probably just because of all those numbers and stuff. But let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below, and I will catch you guys later.